And we're live. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Vincent After Hours edition with yours truly, Dr. Vincent, and my co-host,
Christian.
Christian's there, always lurking from behind the camera. And for those of you who are new to this podcast, who just watch us, listen to us, welcome. And if you're watching the video as well as listening to the audio, just something to let you know, if I'm watching that way, I'm not ignoring you. It's because Christian's saying that way. And today, our topic is actually really interesting because for the longest time, a lot of people probably thought that intelligence and cognitive ability, your brain acuity, they're all set from the moment that you were being born. And there's nothing much that you can do to change that. There's nothing much you can do to improve your IQ level. However, I'm here today to scientifically tell you that that is factually not true. You can get smarter later in life. You can increase your IQ score later in life. And for a lot of us, it doesn't even have to take a lot of effort. I'm not talking about doing a PhD, taking a postdoc, doing a postgrad study. These are the things that you can do every day, little by little, with a huge impact to your cognitive ability. But to open up this episode, I always love this episode that has something to do with what you can do every day, because Christian always has an opinion.
So, the first thing I want to, I would like to ask you about is IQ, like an IQ test, so they actually a real thing?
I think it is a real thing when it comes to a snapshot at someone's intelligence score, or it is a set of measure that you can put in place to take a snapshot of how the brain works, how your analysis work, how your decision making process work. I don't think it is the only way to measure someone's intelligence. It is not the only way to make a conclusive score as to how someone's brain works. However, that is the system that we have developed in the way that we can sort of kind of measure the benchmark of intelligence.
We're just ranking people again, aren't we?
It is ranking people, but it's not only people as in Homo sapiens, because they have the ability to measure or score the intelligence when it comes to the IQ scale of other species like chimpanzee, gorilla, dolphins, and all other mammals. And I do think that it is important because we all know that IQ doesn't equate literally to the way that we behave or our performance, or how we can achieve. Because, for example, if you give a goldfish a test in running, obviously it will fail, and vice versa. If you give I don't know, take an elephant versus a shark, and the race of to measure ability is in swimming, obviously elephant will lose. What I'm trying to say is that the answer to your question whether or not IQ is a legit thing, yes, it is, because all of us are being measured with the same benchmark.
But it's not necessarily an indicator of success in your life, because I'm guessing there's plenty of very, very successful people who didn't score 150 on their IQ test.
Most people don't score 150 because there's actually a community for people who score, I think, 151 and above. It's called Mensa. This group of people are people with a really high intelligence score when it comes to tests on paper. But you're absolutely right. To an extent, it does not determine how well you will do in life. However, we also know that there are genetic conditions like Down syndrome or different types of genetic disorder that when you put these individuals with these conditions to the test when it comes to the IQ score, they consistently will score lower because the way that their brain process information is just different to the rest of us.
So, is all the IQ stuff and the intelligence scored based on like recognizing patterns, or is it maths, or is it?
One aspect of that is maths. One aspect of that is pattern, and the other aspect is an analytical and creative processes in our brain. The ability to recognize similarities, uniformity, and vice versa. And I do think that it also has something to do with your focus, because I don't know how many IQ tests have you done, but if you do it quite often, you can see that there is a pattern to the type of tests or type of question on the test. Things like they will ask you two things very similarly, or actually it's the same question, but instead of asking you in the same way, they reverse the question. So an answer could be a true the first time the question appear, but because the way that the question is being asked, the correct answer would be a false. But it measures your concentration. It measures how you actually pay attention to the question. And these tests are tests are long. It doesn't matter what types, because there's different variants of IQ tests. All right. And I believe that is to measure your concentration. People with conditions like ADHD, for example, or ADD, they have less propensity to do well in this type of test, because obviously you need to compel your brain to pay attention from question 1 to question 100, for example. So this encompasses a lot of perf- performance in our brain that translate to intelligence.
Okay, so is it like true to say that an IQ test is sort of like an evaluation of how well your brain is kind of working?
I think, to me, I would word it differently. I think an IQ test is a valuation or a measure of how well you use your brain. Because don't forget, we only use a small percentage of our brain. This is the reason why when uh, people suffer from brain injury and say, for example, lose a control of one side of their body, with the correct training and some kind of mind over matter kind of trick and treatment, their brain can rebuild a new neural pathway. And that shows how well our brain adapts to the situation. We call it brain plasticity. And the other example to how our brain can adapt and can actually form new neural pathways is that when you speak your mother tongue, the ability to speak your mother tongue is being stored in a different area of your brain versus if you learn a language as a second language or a third language. Something that you learn later in life will be stored in a different part of your brain. And there have been cases where people who came out from a brain coma or a really heavy accident where they had to dissect or do surgery on the brain, they they could lose the ability to speak their mother tongue, but then retain the ability to speak their second language that they learn later in life.
So do we understand really how all this works? I mean, do we understand the
We have a
brain
pretty
as
good
a thing?
idea and pretty good hypothesis and assumption, to the point where we can employ different methods. We can deploy different techniques to make sure that people with brain injury can recover, to make sure that they can perform surgery on our brain without making too many damages. However, a lot of it is still a mystery to science. A lot of it is still something that people are discovering every day. People in this field are discovering every day, because the brain is plastic. And that is why I truly, firmly, and scientifically believe that you can change your IQ. You can get smarter later on in life. And I do believe that conditions like dementia, for example, condition like um, learning disorder, can be resolved if we know what to do with the brain, because a large proportion of our brain remains unused. This is the reason why when the science and medical advancement allow us to tap into this field of neurons, it can literally change the world.
Okay, so if we pretend that everything in life for some reason is distributed on a bell curve, when is it that we have peak brain? When are we at peak brain?
if you if you are taking a very simple approach to a very complex question or a very complex situation, I would say, uh, when it comes to learning from born from birth to 5 years old, that is when our brain
Really?
is
That young?
absorbing information, forming new memories. Even though a lot of people say that you don't remember what happens earlier than 3 years old or 2 years old, but there's also a case where the youngest recognized chess master in the world is now at 3 years old from India. So how do you explain that?
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And
That's something to Google later.
what I'm saying is that what you need to do is to maximize where you are in at the stage of life when it comes to cognitive ability. But another part of the brain function, when if you take it as a bell curve, when it comes to making decision, when it comes to forward thinking and planning and making analytical analysis when it comes to the situation being put in front of you, I would say that is probably not until you are 25 to 35. There's a reason why I do believe that, say, for example, legal age is like 18 or 21, where, I mean, depending on where you are, is because we know scientifically that the brain, younger brain, is more susceptible to impulsive decision making process compared to a forward thinking and planning.
Okay. So, if we then go, okay, how do I sort of maintain my brain? You were talking about some of the sort of exercises and things like that, but recognizing that this is, your PhDs in nutrition and human health and all that sort of stuff. Um, what should we be doing in our lives, and from what ages, to support and maintain our brain?
I always believe that today is a great day to be healthy and happy. And I will add it for today episode that today is a great day to be smart. And the reason why I say today is because we can always argue that we could have done this 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But what's the point of that? So, what I'm saying is that if you listen to this now, if you read something that make you realize that you need to look after your brain, because brain is it's not a muscle, but for the purpose of this argument, I would say that brain is like a muscle. You need to flex it, you need to use it, you need to challenge it, otherwise you lose it. There is the reason why people who read, people who converse, people who engage in debate, they tend to retain their cognitive faculties more better, longer, and more compared to their peers who don't do that. There's a reason why people who remain social in well into their old age are less risky when it comes to developing things like dementia compared to people who live alone and have no or low social life. And that has to do with training your brain, functioning your brain, because the brain needs to fire all of these neurons. If it's not, then the brain gets lazy and no longer developing new neural pathway. The other thing that I always have to say is that even though we don't often think about our brain as part of our body in the way that physical health, when it comes to our skin, our digestive system, our lung, our heart, but it is obviously the command center of our body. And if you believe that what you eat can impact your skin, your gut, or immunity, obviously it is not a huge leap to also believe that what you eat impacts how your brain functions. The biggest risk when it comes to now our generation and younger is actually inflammation, because dementia, obviously, again, there is a genetic factor. There are people with genetic um, characteristic that are more predisposed towards developing dementia, especially when we talk about early onset dementia. However, for the for the rest of us who don't have the genetic predisposition, the thing that can cause us to develop risk of dementia uh, are inflammation, sugar spike or an insulin spike, ultra processed foods, and all of these little things that put burdens and hinder how our brain functions.
Okay, so besides sort of Sudoku and Wordle, how do we feed the brain? What does the brain actually need as a it's an organ in our body? Yes.
It is our organ in our
Okay.
body.
Okay. So what does it actually need? What nutrients does it need? Is it different from other parts of the body?
Well, the first thing that your brain needs is water. I know it's very simple. I always say that water is the cheapest nootropic. So nootropic is this term that's coined to help how our brain perform at the higher level. So they talk about like mushrooms, even caffeine, matcha, taurines, all of these amino acids. But I have to say that the best and cheapest and most effective nootropic is water, because even 2% of water loss in your brain, so when you're dehydrated, can reduce your brain functions up to 20%.
So that gives you a headache too,
It
doesn't it?
gives you a headache.
Yeah.
It hinders your ability to recognize risk. It hinders your ability to make good decision. So uh,
Is that what alcohol is doing to your brain when it affects you, or is that something different?
both ways. So it chemically alters, it physically alters the chemical and chemistry in your brain, but at the same time, it also reduces the amount of hydration in your body, the amount of water that's available for your brain to use, and that hinders your good decision making process. And it also hinders your blood flow, and poor blood flow is probably the main reason why your brain can't function. So think of it, your brain being the command center of your body, it doesn't go to sleep. When we go to sleep, your brain actually function at a higher rate on a different roles. So you store your memory, you form your memory, you basically replay and back up things in your brain when you go to sleep. So our brain is functioning 24/7 every day until the day that we die. And doing so, it requires supply of nutrients, oxygen, and blood flow is the main channel for your brain to thrive. So even before we talk about hydration, the state of the brain working is very important. That is our hydration level and the blood flow. When it comes to nutrients, we know things like omega-3 fish oil or essential fatty acid, polyphenolic compounds. They are all being used by our body to supply these nutrients to the brain to fuel the functions of the brain. Things like uh, antioxidant from fruit and vegetables, things like amino acids in the form of protein. Those are the things that your brain are using to support its function. But at the core of it, because we're not we're not living in the age where we suffer from a lot of malnutrition cases. For a lot of us now, there are two main things that really hinder our brain's ability to achieve more. The first one is inflammation, so physical. The second one is actually we have been training our brain in the wrong direction. So when you are doom scrolling, when you feed your brain instant gratification, it really changes the dopamine feedback in your brain.
I want to ask about that, but the first thing I just want to also ask is I remember when I was at high school a very very long time ago. If I had a big test or something like that, my absolutely amazing mum would get up early in the morning and cook me fish, and
Yeah,
she would give me like a fish meal before I went to school to do the exam that day. That's something
that is something
that's what we should all be doing for our children.
that is readily be available fuel for your brain to use. And not only that, this goes back not only to the nutrients but also the blood flow, because omega-3 also help with your, it has a little bit of a blood thinning effect, and it does help your blood to flow better. And when your brain needs this extra power, it is basically just turning on the tap and the blood flows faster. The blood flows healthily and readily to the brain when you need it. Because the last thing you want is almost like when you have when you are bidding for, I don't know, Taylor Swift tickets, for example, and you need fast internet connection, you have the money, you have the intention to buy a Taylor Swift ticket, but without the fast internet connection, the blood flow, you can't do it. You can't, it puts you at disadvantage to other people who have fast internet connection. So I think we as a society focus too much on what we can do, what we can take to make our brain functions better. Because that's the easy part. If you have the money, you just buy all of the supplements and then suddenly you think that it can help your brain.
So
But we don't want to do things that are seemingly easy and free. Exercise to encourage your blood flow. Eat well. Reduce your intake of ultra processed food. Drink water. And engage in things like conversation that is more than just texting. Because when you are putting your words into text, which is great, but when you're texting, you're losing 95% of the nuances that your brain is being engaged and stimulated with when you are having a conversation in person. Because your brain is attuned to social cues, expressions, body language, and all of these environmental signals that the other person is sending you that you don't have when you're just staring on the screen.
Okay, but like getting back to the fish thing, so is taking fish oil tablets something that you should do before you have, a hard day of thinking, or you need to, you're having a day that, is going to be.
I'm going to be very careful here because being in the industry, I do know how fish oil is being made.
I know, but we don't sell
fish oil
yeah.
for a good reason. But what I'm saying is that being in the industry, I know how fish oil is being made. I'm not going to say anything, but please do Google it. I do believe when it comes to omega-3 fatty acid, which is essential fatty acid, I do believe that eating fish, the right amount and the right type of fish is actually the way to go. I do believe that when your diet is healthy, you don't necessarily need to have to rely on capsules and tablets. There are things that we still do. Say, for example, people who are vegan, they need B12 and they need folic acid when it comes to antioxidants because our body is not very great at breaking it down, metabolizing, utilizing, and absorbing it. Then you need phenolics that have been activated. But if you eat small fish, fatty fish, I know that mercury contamination is an issue or is a concern. But if you eat smaller fish,
but how many times a week? I mean, how many times do you have to do this?
At least 1 to 2. Hopefully, you find it in your cooking repertoire to include fish 2 to 3 times in your
Oh my God, I don't do
menu.
that. I don't really eat fish that often.
But it's not only fish. Seafood.
What, any sort of seafood?
Most seafood, especially things that are fattier, because obviously that is a part of the essential fatty acid. But you need to make sure that if you eat fish, it needs to be smaller fish because larger fish will have the risk of accumulation of these contaminants like mercury, because obviously small fish is being eaten by big fish, and then this big fish is being eaten by the bigger fish, and all of these mercury's level are compounding inside of the bigger fish.
This is why we should avoid eating swordfish too often and things like that.
Or sharks. I mean, I know that sharks are like hake are actually quite popular because they are
used to be a lot more popular. I mean, it used to be the only fish, and I think they then banned the fishing of sharks a lot in Australia for whatever reason.
And I do believe that as much as I don't want to be in near proximity with sharks, I do believe that sharks are the apex predators for many, 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 many million years. And I think it's really sad that we are now culling sharks by the millions. We kill more of them than they kill us.
Okay. Well, that was a bit of a side journey, but let's bring it back to the brain. And I guess again connecting to that nutrition. Besides fish, is there any other particular vegetable or anything like that we should be eating?
Flaxseed is one of the good source of.
And where do you get flaxseed from? I mean,
You get it from health food source. You can get it
okay.
from your healthy pantry. Woolworth sells it. So when you usually where you will find our activated apple cider vinegar, it is on the next aisle because it's in the same
I
aisle
would
of healthy pantry.
I wouldn't know what to do with a flaxseed if someone gave it to me. I wouldn't know what it looked like.
Unbroken, it comes in two colors, primarily golden or soft kind of light brown yellow, and the dark brown one. Doesn't really matter which one you choose. You can make s- seeded crackers with it. You can bake bread with it. So I bake my own bread. So I just put it as instead of putting
But it's sort of
soy.
a nutty flavor or something,
Yeah,
does
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
Instead of
Is it like
putting,
a sunflower seed or look?
it is a little bit.
Okay.
It has a crunchy, soft kind of outer husk more than sunflower, and this is not even roasted. In some cultures or society, flaxseed is also known as linseed, so they're the same thing. So if you buy some of the expensive fancy breads
Oh, yeah, no, I've seen the
foggy
linseed
and
bread.
linseed,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Got it, got it.
And the other thing that you can do, which is the easiest thing, is just sprinkle it on top of your cereal. I used to work at the health food store, so I have these Japanese customers who say that their family just sprinkle it on top of rice, in the same way that they would sprinkle sesame seeds, for example. The other thing that's also really good when it comes to healthy fats in our diet to help with our brain is avocado. Phenolics, apple phenolics especially, have been linked to the reduced risk of Alzheimer dementia. I wrote a scientific journal on that. You can Google that. The other thing that also helps when it comes to what we eat to help our brain function really well is whole grain. It's packed with B vitamins. They are natural and readily absorbable by your body. It is better for you than the things that comes in the form of pills or tablets. I think a lot more people are coming to the understanding that just because it's chemically the same, natural, identical, not all vitamins and minerals are created equal. A lot more people are coming to the understanding that whole food nutrition, meaning nutrients that comes from whole food, are actually much more potent, activated, and readily available for your body to use. Because whilst the chemical conformation and structures are the same, it is just like having a singer singing a cappella. And I know that there's a lot of singers out there who can sing a cappella really well, compared to having the whole choir when you have it in the form of whole food nutrition. And I do believe that our body is not functioning and thriving really well just taking concentrated amount of nutrients in the form of pill, because there's so much more nutrients and
And your body kind of
compounds
knows the
in your
difference.
diet that can support your health compared to just taking a pill. Sorry, what were you saying?
And and your body knows the difference, yes?
Your body knows the difference. Your body is a lot more accustomed and able to deal with a natural form of these vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants compared to the ones that are synthesized in the labs.
Okay. So, let's then get to, some of the things in the brain that fire, that people sort of, I don't know, pursue, because you started talking about dopamine and things like that. What are those things and where do they come from?
So that is our hormone.
Okay.
So cortisol is our stress hormone. Dopamine is
And it comes out of the brain.
it comes out from our body, and it's
Okay.
being delivered and targeted to the neurons in our brain. So cortisol is our stress hormone, oxytocin is our happy hormone. But the thing that I believe is at the foundation, at the center of all of these things that comes to, say, for example, addiction, comes to habit and training and how your brain is being shaped, is the dopamine. So dopamine is the do it again substance. So say, for example, I've been told this by a lot of people, including my own sister. Why is it when women give birth, they kind of forget about the pain and they want to do it again? And in the past, that women could birth 10, 20 kids, and it is being described as the most painful things that can happen to human body ever, you know? So the reason is because the brain somehow trick your body into forgetting the pain and you do it again. And evolutionary and genetically, you want it to happen because back in the day, that is how our species ensured uh, the longevity of the species, the survival of the species, right? So the same thing with, say, for example, why are some people are addicted to things that spike the adrenaline? So cliff jumping or doing all of these extreme sports, things that you can't really explain logically, is because the way that their dopamine system works is they want that high again. They want that dopamine again. That is the do it again factor. And that's all well and good. However, when it comes to addiction, this is where the dopamine system is being hijacked. So
And does this age the brain? I mean, does this damage the brain? Because I guess we're talking about, sort of intelligences and cognitive function as you're getting older.
it
So
doesn't age the brain in the sense that you would think that because we do it again, a brain is a tool that is the wear and tear. That's what you're asking, right?
yeah, I guess.
No, it's not. It's not aging or damaging the brain in the wear and tear uh, aspect or thought process. However, it does have negative impact to our brain in the way that it either lower the threshold of the dopamine or increase the threshold of the dopamine level or change the way that your brain perceive happiness and fulfillment altogether. And that's the reason why when people are addicted to drugs, they need the higher dose. The dose keep getting higher
So
because the
is that
previous level that your brain needs to achieve that high is no longer the level. It needs to be higher.
so let's talk about screen time then. So a lot of kids in that get sort of really addicted to or really want to do screen time. That's about the feedback loop, isn't it? That's about
Yes,
the dopamine
that's the
and whatever.
dopamine loop.
So are people doing damage to themselves? I don't know if you want to comment on that or not.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
do again. It doesn't do damage to cells, the brain cells physically, but it hijacks the brain function into just focusing on that. And when it hijacks your brain function and the brain is just focusing on this one thing, this instant gratification, the number of likes, the next thing that make you laugh, the next trend, it doesn't create new neural pathways. And if it doesn't create new neural pathways, then all of a sudden they lose their ability to speak properly. They lose their ability to catch social cues. They lose their ability to feel empathy. They lose their ability to function socially because their brain is only focusing on this one thing because the brain wants that dopamine. And inevitably, your brain is going to abandon other things that are not going to give it the same level of high because you have trained your brain to be dependent on this one type of high.
okay. So everyone talks about, especially as they're getting older. I know I occasionally suffer from it. This sort of brain fog. And
Yes.
often, like when you get up in the morning and whatever, and you've just got this brain fog, and the only thing that fixes it is a cup of coffee. So why does coffee fix brain fog? And what is brain fog?
So brain fog is the reduced ability of your brain and cognitive faculty to process information, to perceive information, and to make decision. It also takes away your control of your mood. I mean, this is the reason why a lot of people feel that they're grumpy and even angry when they don't get their caffeine. Caffeine is a crutch. It is a tool that your brain relies on for those of you who drink coffee or who have trained your brain and body to rely on coffee to perform its function, especially first thing in the morning. Caffeine does alter your brain activity, but at the same time, it also increases blood flow. We already established that your brain needs blood flow to function. And number three, when you train your brain on a habit, on a routine, you're creating a ritualistic aspect to it. So that's why actors, for example, have a ritual before they perform, or people have a ritual before they do something that they think is big in their brain. 50% physical and chemistry in your brain, 50% is mind over matter because of the ritualistic aspect to it. I do believe that at the end of the day, for everyone, it's a combination of both. And I have to say that I drink coffee. I rely on three things when it comes to um, doing all of this. It's not easy being a business owner, being a scientist, doing all of this, and still be a good parent. Number one, water. Number two, my activated phenolics. And number three, coffee. So I can not eat during the day, and I sometimes do intermittent fasting. But those three things, if I don't start in the morning, and also my green juice, uh, but I can live without it. In terms of, I do that because I want to be healthy. But these three things are my non-negotiable. If ever I become an actor or an important person, those three things will be on my riders. So those three things, I have trained my brain to regard those three things as a ritual in the morning. And I know
But
that
you're
it's
not drinking.
bad.
Yeah, but you're not drinking like 8 cups of coffee a day. You're having a couple of cups of coffee a day.
3 to 4, depending on the day.
Wow,
I
that's
work
quite a
with
lot.
you.
A day that you work with
I
me,
require more.
you need to drink more. Okay, understand. Thank you.
But inflammation is the issue, especially when it comes to ultra processed foods. 80% of our food that we eat, I know the statistic says only 50% of Australian kilojoules originate from ultra processed food. But if you actually are being very honest when it comes to your own diet, I would say 70 to 80% of your diet are rooted in ultra processed food. I really do believe that people need to take a pause and try to reverse it. It's not easy, but
Because this is damaging your brain, yeah?
yes, I have to say that brain fog is often a food problem rather than a brain problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you are what you eat, if what you eat changes the chemistry of your body,
So we all need a handful of flaxseed or something.
or an apple a day.
Okay.
So this is the thing that I want to read out to you to see if you know this before or not, and what you think about it. So this is 10 did you know brain facts. First of all, did you know your brain can grow new neural pathways at any age? You're never too old to get smarter.
I did know that it could grow neural pathways. I didn't know that as you got like geriatric or into that sort of space that it continues to do that. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I always say that, Martha Stewart is, I don't know, I think it's 84. My grandma.
One of your heroes. Yeah.
Both of them are my heroes. They are.
Only one of them's been to jail though.
Grandma,
that we
please
know
don't
of.
do anything. Grandma, please don't do anything. What I'm trying to say is that they're really, really sharp. You can have a full-on debate, political, scientific, social issues, scientific issues with my mom and my grandma, but I meant to say my grandma, anytime. And she is still very engaging. She's still very argumentative. So I do think that age is how we define it to be. The same way that there are 70 years old, 75 years old who can run a marathon. That's the extreme. But there are also people who are on their 20s and 30s, they can't even climb 3 flights of stairs. So, Did you know that even one night of bad sleep can drop your cognitive performance by up to 40%?
I believe that. My gosh, yes.
Did you know that a dehydrated brain literally shrinks?
Well, we've talked
Yes.
about that. Yeah.
Did you know that we talk about brain fog? Did you know that exercise is the only proven way to grow new brain cells?
Exercise,
Yes.
as in physical exercise.
Physical exercise.
And what sort of exercise? Just walking or running or lifting weights, or what are we talking?
Move. So it doesn't matter what you do as long as you move, because moving induces circulation, and moving also triggers the function of your brain to be alert and aware. You may not think that just by standing or lifting stuff and or pulling a cable or doing a jumping jack, you may not think that that's significant, but it requires a concerted effort, a huge concerted effort by your brain to monitor the movement, balancing your body, expecting where you land, how you recover. So it is literally a training ground for your brain.
Well, actually, I read somewhere or heard somewhere that gardening was the best exercise as you get older, because it's doing all those things, isn't it?
And not only that, that's only 50% of the story. Gardening is the best not exercise that you can do for both your brain and longevity. The 50% obviously is the moving. The other 50% is more about things that you probably don't even think of. Sunlight, it helps you with vitamin D. It gives you a happy feeling. And also, when you plant something, especially when you plant from seeds, if you have been following my Instagram, the sunflowers are blooming. Have you seen that? It's the size of my palm.
They're pretty impressive, I've got to say.
But I planted that 12 weeks ago. So at the very least, I expected to live 12 weeks ago. I expect to live at least 12 more weeks. But imagine if you're planting apple tree from seeds, for example, or lemon tree, and you're thinking ahead that you will have constant yearly supply of lime for your margarita. So you are thinking that you're going to be living for 10 years, 20 years. It is amazing what your thought becomes a reality.
So it's gardening feeds the brain in more ways than one.
In more ways than one. Did you know that your gut produces neurotransmitters like serotonin? So a healthy gut means that you will have a happier, clearer, sharper brain.
It all comes back to that nutrition.
Health.
Yep.
Wow. I didn't know this before, but stress hormone shrinks the part of your brain responsible for memory. Chronic stress makes it even harder to learn. I mean, this makes a lot of sense because when you have a traumatic experience, it never happens to me, but some people can have a total memory loss of certain event in their life.
And it's the stress hormone that causes that, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you know that your brain benefits from occasional boredom? Quiet moments create creativity, clarity, and problem solving. So I know that this is so different from us saying that you need to engage your brain all the time, but occasionally it thrives on boredom. But by boredom, I don't think it means that your brain is not working, because
it's letting your thoughts wander and having an imagination and
having
thinking about things, having a moment to yourself, which I don't know, with all the screen time and all the doom scrolling and all that sort of stuff, people are losing, I think. I'm really worried about it. Well, not for myself, but,
I have to say that I'm a great company for my own self. I love my own company, and I do think that
everyone loves your company.
Thank you. But I do think that it needs to be a thing again. I really do believe that there is no shame in taking yourself out for dinner or going to the cinema on your own. I used to think that that's a little bit pathetic. I feel sorry for myself. I used to feel sorry for myself for doing that. But I do believe that a quiet moment to yourself, or it doesn't have to be quiet, but a moment to yourself does wonder.
That's what Keanu Reeves says. I'm gonna go by what that guy says.
He is such a quality guy if everything on the tableau is to be believed.
Anyway, so we're almost out of time. So what's our sort of takeaway? What's our last one?
Well, there are two more. So learning something slightly difficult is the fastest way to grow your neural connection.
Something scientific.
Something that scientific in the way. What?
Did you say learning something scientific?
No, learning something slightly difficult
Oh, slightly difficult. Got it.
is the fastest way to grow your neural connection.
Of course.
Scientific can be a thing.
Yeah.
Comfort doesn't grow your brain, challenge does. And antioxidants reduce brain inflammation and support better thinking. And this all comes from fresh fruit and vegetables, whole grain, good fat, good oil, lean protein. They all translate to fresh, sharper, happier, clearer brain.
Okay, that's been really interesting.
I know that we don't normally think and talk about our brain because we just take it for granted that it's there, it's performing its function, whether we know it or not. But it is the command center of our body. And I do think that today we learn that we can get smarter at any age. And people talk about being healthier, people talk about being happier, and being smarter is an integral part to that. And I do believe that knowledge is power. And when you give people that knowledge, that power, you're essentially giving people the ability to choose smarter, to choose better. The same thing that is the same thing that can be applied to your health. Because when you go down the supermarket aisle, you're being spoiled with choices. It's kind of up to you to make a smarter, healthier choice for your body.
Stay away from the ultra processed food if you can.
80-20. 80% good, 20%, knock yourself out. On that note, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you like the new set. I got all of your feedback. It is less distracting. But let me know what I can improve. Let me know what Christian can improve because I have notes. But until next time, I bid you adieu. Have a great, great week, and we'll talk again next week. Bye bye.